Good afternoon and welcome. You're listening live to Heart-2-Heart at KMET 1490 AM ABC Live. This program aims to help you understand and to become your loving self. I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist in private practice and located in Encino, California.
Yes, you are.
Yes, I am.
And I am your friend and your partner. I'm Dr. Robert Jaffe, also licensed marriage and family therapist and certified hypnotherapist. And we're here today to talk to you about a subject near and dear to our hearts, which is our sexuality and our relationships and love and intimacy, getting close to somebody. So we have some good information and good topics ahead today, and I hope you stay with us and join us. And we also want you to call in if you can, or email. You can email us at our station, and we'll be happy to respond to any inquiries that we get about what we're talking about or opinions, anything you want to say or add. We are open and willing and looking forward to connecting.
Our phone number is 951-922-3532. You can also visit us at our YouTube at heart-2-heart.online/YouTube, and we would appreciate if you can share this information with people that you believe they can benefit by listening to our program. So this pandemic and many things are happening. Many relationships have changed, and many perceptions about relationships have changed. It's like, we're learning all over again how to walk, how to talk, how to feel, how to express, or not, as a matter of fact. So one of the things that has been happening, because couples are now sort of forced to live together, many conflicts have, showed up, right?
Yeah.
And so because also due to a variety of factors, such as financial, people are unable to go to therapy in order to resolve their issues. Some of them have turned elsewhere for resolution, right?
Turned elsewhere. What do you mean?
Elsewhere for comfort.
Like, I don't know, what are you referring to?
So, when couples are fighting, right, usually people, they were able to either seek counseling or go to their friends or share their problems with other family members or other friends, and so that they can kind of make it easier on themselves. Right. Maybe find some guidelines for themselves, right? Do something for it, right? Because who wants to stay in a conflict in a relationship?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Nobody likes that. But because of pandemic, and then many couples, as a matter of fact, because they used to go out and work, they left, home maybe about 7 or 8 o'clock, in the morning, and then they didn't got back together until maybe 5, 6, 7 p.m. So they had the whole day to be apart from each other.
Correct.
Right. So they didn't feel the impact of their disagreements or conflicts or whatever problem that was happening among them. Or if they felt that, it was minimal, right? And they managed to kind of put it on the backside and not look at it, right? However, from what I'm hearing, and also I saw an article about this factor. I got this article from the Journal of Science of Psychotherapy, which is a production of neuroscience, and they are talking about one of the ways that it's been growing despite the pandemic among couples, and that's the nature of infidelity.
Okay. So that's what you were talking about.
That's what I was talking
Okay,
about.
good.
Right?
Yeah.
What did you think I was talking about?
Well, you said finding other ways, and,
Right.
and so I was thinking, what other ways? And now you're telling me.
Yeah. So
Okay.
one other way of not facing, couples or relationship problem, people believe that they can find happiness elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, in somebody else's arms.
Somebody else's arms, right?
Right.
Even it's pandemic. So there are a variety of ways that this is happening, which I'm going to get to that, how they do it. But, let's see, basically, we see among couples that they come to our practice that more or less we see couples that they have, infidelity issues.
Sometimes. Yeah.
And then some of them actually, the infidelity, the act of it, doesn't just happen one time. Sometimes it's multiple times.
Right.
Sometimes it's very much frequently. And then the wife or the husband is the last one to know.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. And also I want to say that there's, and I'm sure you'll talk about this, that this is not just physical infidelity, right? There can be an emotional infidelity where you're attached to somebody and not disconnecting from your partner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then one thing that we look into as therapists, what makes a person to take that direction for comfort. Right.
Right.
And usually we see that variety of negative emotional factors that the individual feels about himself or herself. And they don't feel safe with their partners to share those feelings. Somebody else welcomes that. So that's one way.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was actually telling you earlier that I have a couple that I'm seeing. I see them on Zoom. And I was talking with them, and the man was very afraid that his wife was having an affair because they've been having problems and they haven't been sexual. And he had a number of friends whose wives had affairs, so that increased his fear. And he never told her that he was afraid of that. So it came out in the session that he was afraid of that. And she said, I had no idea you were thinking that. She said, it's the farthest thing from my mind. She said, I know we've been struggling, but it never even occurred to me. And I'm so glad that you're telling me, because this has been something where I felt you pulling away from me and I didn't know why. So it came out in the therapy session and it was positive.
Exactly. So then, one of the reasons for infidelity, as it is listed in this article, precisely talks about that. So this article is Working with Couples by Karen Ferry in the Journal of the Science of Psychotherapy. It just published a couple of days ago, which is, I'm always looking for new information, and I'm always looking for the updated information about how to take care of, conflicts within relationships.
You do that, and I love that about you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's great because you want to stay on top of things, and you're always searching for what's relevant to what we do.
Right. Thank you. Well, if I don't do that, somebody else will do that.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm glad you do it.
So I think when we talk about things, people usually can have a misunderstood assumption about what the meanings are, right? So when we talk about, infidelity, according to this article, they call it violation of a couple's assumed or stated contract regarding emotional and or sexual, exclusivity.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and the vast majority of people, when they decide to marry somebody, or even live in a married way with somebody, that is an unspoken assumption.
Right.
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 Yeah.
And then another scholar, introduced that as once a committed relationship is established, if there is a secret sexual and or romantic involvement outside the relationship, it is experienced as infidelity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
So that's precisely what it is. You know, a couple, they make a lifelong contract that you're mine, I'm yours, or we live together, or, and I don't like to say I'm yours, you're mine, because that's kind of been possessing each other.
Right.
But
Right.
that's the usual term that usually we hear, right?
Yes.
The reality is that that's a contract that two people make a commitment to stay together and share their lives together.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody else is to break that commitment and that boundaries, step the boundaries, you know.
Exactly.
Break the boundaries.
Exactly. And so it requires a tremendous amount of trust.
Right.
Yes.
Trust, commitment, you know, work through it, you know, and that's one of the things that is really happening, that people forget that romantic relationship is an ongoing working process.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
Yes.
not something that, okay, as soon as you're married, okay, well, we're done, we're together, we're, you know, we belong to each other, well, that's it, forget about it, right? And then we wonder why 6 months later, you know, divorce is part of the conversation.
Exactly.
Right? They forget that it's a working process, just like anything else in life, right?
And it's about bonding.
So, yeah.
It's about bonding, saying that you and I are bound together by our mutual desire and a mutual belief in each other.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And pretty much that's also, you know, to a degree, it's a definition of a solid, good friendship.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because if two people, to make that kind of a commitment, you know, a solid friendship as a fundamental aspect of a relationship is essential. So the article continues to talk about reasons for infidelity, right? Because some people, they really don't know. I mean, when we ask couples, what made you, you know, to have a relationship outside your marriage, sometimes they pause, you know, or the next thing they do, they blame each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
According to this article, the most common factors includes a relationship of high conflict and low emotional warmth, along with, you know, neglect of sexual intimacy, job demands, personal insecurities, and individuals that, you know, suffer relationship difficulties
Mm-hmm.
due to injury of illness, and, you know, can also increase conflict and heighten the emotional distance. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
Which is really true. We see that, we just got the notice, but we see that, you know, sometimes actually, yeah, that's one of the things that, you know, when the wife or the husband becomes ill, or one of the partners become ill, you know, the other person may feel, you know, entitled to have another relationship.
Yes, that happens quite frequently.
Quite frequently.
Yes.
So we talk more about this after our commercial break, and we look forward to hearing from you. 951-922-3532.
See you soon.
To 4 p.m. Please join us. Thank you. Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio. For those of you just tuning in, our discussion for this segment is about infidelity and causes of that and what to do about it. And so please call us if you have any questions or comment, or if you have experienced infidelity in your relationship. Our phone number is 951-922-3532. You can also visit us at our YouTube, Heart-2-Heart.online/YouTube. So, and Dr. Robert, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
So we were talking about, you know, reasons for infidelity before the commercial break, and then we here the article that we are talking about from is working with couples by Karen Ferry at the Journal of the Science of Psychotherapy related to neuroscience. They say that affairs can be driven by intimacy fears, or it can be the result of a power, equality imbalance, or it can begin by kind of giving negative energy, emotional energy, and then instead of working through that negative energy instead of solving what's happening.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And then so one of the things that's happening now that increased in intimacy is because when couples are facing each other with difficulty, because now they are together pretty much 24/7, instead of looking for resolution, they find escapes from each other.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of those escapes is, guess what? Is internet infidelity, which includes pornography, cyber sex, and online sexual interpersonal relationship.
Correct. Yeah.
And they are busy with their computer, they are busy with their laptops, they are busy with their iPhone. So it's not always working. It's also searching for other relationships.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And of course, when people do that, they're shortchanging themselves,
Right.
and they're shortchanging their partners.
Right.
And of course, if you start looking for ways to avoid intimacy, you will find them.
Right. And then so doing this more so, we see that during the pandemic, among some couples, it has caused emotional distances and violation of expectations that they have committed to in their relationships, and then emotional and intimacy has been actually lowered.
Yes.
Among them.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. People don't have the tools often to be able to bridge the gap and create more intimacy. They don't understand how to, and so as a result, they don't have what they really want, and then they look elsewhere.
Exactly. So some may say, well, so what? They are stuck at home. They don't like each other. They're tired of looking at each other all day. There is not much to do. Kids are home. They can't have sex. Everything needs to be done in hiding, in quiet, time. And kids don't go to bed on time. And then parents get tired. And so it's kind of a, chaotic situation, right? However, no matter what the challenges are at home, we know that infidelity has its own consequences.
Big time.
Big time. And, surprisingly, we see that infidelity rate has increased among female partners, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a big jump.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. And so what is your thought about that?
Well, I think women are paying attention more to their sexuality. They are more in a place of having more understanding about their desires and what they want, and they realize they cannot get it from their partner. So instead of, again, looking for resolution, looking for a way to solve their problems, right, they look elsewhere because they have this assumption that their partner will never be able to help them with their sexual demands or sexual desires. But that's at least, one of the common reasons. I mean, for every person is different.
Yeah. And I think help them with their sexual desires, but sometimes the sexual desires overlap to emotional. Right. So the woman isn't feeling close to her partner, and she starts to believe that it can't happen.
Right.
So then she decides to look elsewhere.
Right. And unfortunately, the comfort of laptops and iPhones and all of that, and the ability to be able to download all these apps, right, has facilitated, a way of looking elsewhere for pleasure, for comfort, right? So let's see what are some of the consequences of, infidelity, right? Well, one is, maintaining secret, coming up with lies, right? And then, of course, loss of trust, that happens as a result of, having relationship with somebody else.
Yeah, and I want to just stay with that for a second, because I want to comment that unless we are sociopaths being people who don't have a conscience, and they can lie without feeling badly about it, and that's a very tiny percentage of the population.
Right.
So unless we're not a sociopath, none of us feel good about lying. We do it, but we don't feel good about it. And the not feeling good creates subconscious and sometimes conscious guilt. And the guilt often leads to negative behaviors, because when we feel guilty, often we do things that are self-sabotaging. And often when we're guilty, we also don't take good care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to comment on that, because telling a lie doesn't just end when the lie is told, because also we have feelings about the fact that we're lying.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And then, there is this old saying that a liar forgets what they said.
Yes.
Excuse my voice. So what happens, the person, if they are caught, so they just add more lie to it.
Correct.
In order to kind of rationalize their actions and their choices, and they just kind of dig a much deeper hole for themselves, and becomes more difficult to face the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So when a partner chooses infidelity, what happens to the other partner? Well, the other partner, whether it's male or female, is left feeling violated and devalued, right? They kind of float between rage and powerlessness. They feel victimized and abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
They feel depressed, right? They feel rejected. It's causing, self-esteem issues, and loss of confidence, are very much common. And then sometimes the symptoms actually resembles those of having PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder,
Mm-hmm.
right? And basically, sometimes the partners who have been unfaithful maybe experience emotional struggles and feelings of guilt, shame, anger, and depression.
Yes.
But that's only when they admit to it. And I actually have had clients that, the partner who did violated their relationship through infidelity, they did express that, how much they feel guilty, how much they feel shameful, and to the point that they actually were talking about, attempting suicide.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that's how much the person who chooses to infidelity can actually feel bad about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So part of the challenge for me with that couple, was and has been to keep him out of depressive, suicidal thoughts.
Yes.
Actually.
Yes.
Right. Of course, a lot has changed since the first time I've seen them, but it happens.
Mm-hmm.
However, the person who's being betrayed, the struggle over there is significant.
Yes, it's very significant.
It's very significant
because it's something that is it's so personal.
Right.
That you didn't want me, you wanted somebody else.
Right.
And we had this understanding that we would always be honest with each other. Mm-hmm. And here you've broken that, and now how can I ever trust you?
Exactly. And we see that, some of the rationalizations that comes up for the, person who actually has chosen to, to cheat, that's basically is cheating on their relationship, right? Mm-hmm. Have been blaming their partner.
Right.
Like they're not sexual enough, they're not pretty enough, or
they're too busy.
They're too busy, they don't understand me,
yeah.
Or, the list can go on and on and on and on.
Yes.
Right. So aside from the partner that's been betrayed, we want to look at also if there are any children within that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what age children we're talking about.
Yeah.
Whether the child is 2 years old, or whether the child is 20 years old or 40 years old, right? It's just the image that, you know, children have from their parents, and they live with that image, right?
Well, parents, for better and worse, I'm not going to say for better or worse, because it's both, for better and worse, is that they are role models, and and parents are gods to us when we're born. They have the power of life and death over us, and we know it. And so we watch them very carefully for what they say and what kind of feelings they express toward us and toward the other parent and towards the other siblings. And so we're affected deeply by their view. And when we see that they've done something like cheating on their spouse, it's very, very damaging and sets up an internal conflict inside of us as to whether either it's okay for us to cheat, or a fear that our partner will eventually cheat on us. And of course, that can keep us from ever really bonding with somebody.
Exactly. And I'm going to bring some cultural factors here in the picture, which is not in this article, but that's, you know, something that I have researched myself.
Mm-hmm.
We know that in certain cultures, having more than one partner, especially female partner, is applicable, right?
Yes.
And then, so many of those cultures, they pretty much give themselves permission to have more than one relationship, right? The reality is, when we look at the criteria and we look at the laws, we look at the social norm, even within those, you know, nations, that having more than one female partner, right, needs to have certain, you know, criteria. So that means that if they don't, first of all, the permission of the female partner is number one criteria. So the female partner must know about it. You can't just go and select another partner and bring her home and say, guess what? Here's the next one, right?
Right.
You can't just do that. So the number one criteria of having more than one partner, even within these nations, which is only a cultural factor, right, is that you get the acceptance of the original first female partner.
And so tell me about that, because does the female partner then feel pressured, even if she doesn't really want to give acceptance? Does she feel pressured to do it because of the culture that and the culture says it's really permissible for the man to have more than one woman?
Unfortunately, majority of time that is true. Yes.
Yeah. So even though they're giving permission,
right,
they're not really giving permission.
They're not giving permission, and then we have seen devastating, you know, actions and reactions within those families, right? And problems with the, you know, children that they are developed as a result of multiple relationships within the same setting. It's just such a chaotic situation, which I have still, you know, have a difficult time myself to understand how something like that can happen, right?
Yes.
So, but the history of that goes back during, you know, maybe 2,000 years ago, when women were taken as slaves during wartime, right? So it was decided for a man to have maybe up to 4 wives in order to save women from being, you know, harassed or being raped. Or,
I see.
You know.
I see.
So that's the philosophy. But that worked then. Today, we don't have such a concept.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So maybe the philosophy was accurate during 2,000 years ago.
There was a reason for it at that time.
There was a reason for it at the time. So, but that reasons are definitely not applicable today.
Yes.
But the practice still goes on.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So they don't call that infidelity because it is done within the law, within the social norm.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But, you know, thankfully, we're not living in that nation.
Thankfully.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
So anything outside that relationship, it is called infidelity. For sure it is.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So they are actually, you know, so that was one of the, you know, myths that I was going to talk about. That, but there are other common myths, around infidelity. And the fact in the first one is, according to this article, infidelity is normal, acceptable. It's acceptable behavior. Everybody is unfaithful.
Yeah, that's. I have actually heard people say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so of course, if you have that belief, then everything changes for you.
Right.
Right? Because it affects how in other words, how intimate can you let yourself be with someone if you know that that person is going to be bringing somebody else into the relationship?
Right. But how true is that? I mean, you just like we're saying, eye to eye kind of a thing. Even this is even an assumed kind of a concept. It's not really the truth.
No, of course, right.
So based on the false assumptions, we give ourselves permission to go and
without recognizing how important trust and intimacy are.
Right.
Because people often don't know that, and so they think, well, you can have sex and not care that much about the person. Why not open it up?
Right.
And I think that has a lot to do with the person's misunderstanding of how human beings operate.
Exactly. Well, that is so sad.
Yeah.
That is so sad. The second one is that's very interesting. And dual marriages can benefit from affairs.
Mm-hmm.
How's that? How's that a dual marriage can benefit from affairs? Have you heard about that? I mean, I don't know much about that.
What kind of marriage?
Dual marriages.
Dual marriage?
Yes.
Can benefit from an affair. Well, yeah, I have heard that, and I think that comes also from a misbelief, mm-hmm. which is that that if you have more than one person, that you're not so dependent on that one person. And if mm-hmm. the one person, for example, isn't in the mood to have sex, you have the other person, and that gets your need met, and therefore things will work out. Mm-hmm. I think it's that kind of belief.
Yeah. So thankfully, we are talking about, myths surrounding infidelity. So these are not truth. Mm-hmm. These are misconceptions that publics have about, why infidelity is okay.
Yeah.
Right. So the third one is divorce is a natural consequences of an affair, as it proves the involved partner does not love their spouse. So that is actually, I have seen in therapy.
Mm-hmm. So say more about that one.
So I have seen couples that one partner has been involved in infidelity, whether it's been one time or multiple times. I have seen it both with male and female, uh-huh. right? And the very first thing that they say to me is that I love my wife, I love my husband. Mm-hmm. And, mm-hmm. I just don't know how this happens, but it just happened. And then some of them, they actually know why that happened. Mm-hmm. Right. So let's talk about that after our commercial break, because we just got the signal about this. And please don't forget to call us, 951-922-3532.
See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Here at Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490, ABC News Radio, we're talking about infidelity during pandemic. So please call us, 951-922-3532. So Dr. Robert, we're talking about divorce is a natural consequences of an affair, as it proves the involved partner does not love their spouse, right? So we say, yeah, if somebody's having a relationship out of marriage, he or she must not love their wife or their husband.
Yeah, right? Another erroneous belief.
Exactly,
mm-hmm.
right? But, we see in therapy, they come in and say, no, we love each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's a really, a paradox here.
Well, yeah. And I do think that it's erroneous to believe that that if you cheat on somebody that you don't love them. I think you can love them, but but loving someone doesn't always mean that you're not afraid to get close to them,
right?
Or that you have some resentment toward them. And either one of those things, or both of those things, being afraid to get too close or having resentments toward them, can lead you astray.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and then and some of them, when they say that, it's their indirect way of asking for forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I didn't mean it. Like, I made a mistake. And then I love you. I don't know what happened, and they blame it on the one emotional moment of insanity or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, that's not true. And then we see that couples who go through infidelity, some of them don't end up in divorce.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Because they are able to work through the issues.
And I've even worked with people who the infidelity caused them to get into couples counseling,
Right.
And through the couples counseling, their relationship actually got a lot stronger.
Right.
So
Right.
it can work that way, depending upon what people want.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then sometimes, when we have them in therapy, we see some of the misbelief about themselves that cause them to stay in the relationship and suffer from looking at their partner going through the process of infidelity.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
I have a couple right now that we're finding out that the husband had so much misbelief about himself,
Mm-hmm.
that accepted the wife's infidelity for his survival.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And that's such a huge dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine the depth of hurt, the depth of, fear, the depth of discomfort that an individual may go through,
Right.
and stay in a relationship that clearly is not working.
Well,
Right.
clearly there's something missing, but the person is so consumed with their own self-doubt and their own lack of self-esteem,
Right.
that the other person's infidelity sort of gets overlooked.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And sometimes, we see that, I have couples that the infidelity has repeated itself since the beginning of their marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple times.
Right.
And I have a couple here that their infidelity started, they've been married for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much from the beginning, every couple of years, the husband has had one relationship, and sometimes multiple relationships during an episode.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Yes.
So he managed to combine, online, affairs as well.
Uh-huh.
And meeting with these women and, have sex with them and then forget about them.
Right.
So just, 1 hour stand, I should call it, right?
1 hour stand. Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the other myth here is that the affairee, that somebody that one person has an affair with, is someone sexier and more attractive than the spouse.
Mm.
And usually we see that's not true.
No. It usually is not about. I mean, there may be an attractive feature
Right.
that the other person has, and everybody has their own qualities, right?
Yeah.
So maybe there's a physical feature, or maybe there's an emotional feature that the other person possesses. But usually the person who has the affair is doing it for reasons that are subconscious as well, sometimes as conscious. And so when you just said a moment ago, I had this one mad impulse, sometimes it appears to the person that way,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not aware of what's really going on for them emotionally. And so there's a lot of turmoil inside of them, and then it doesn't take much to spark their desire to have the affair.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then the other myth is the non-involved partner is to blame for the affair, as they made it necessary to try something different. That one gets me.
Well, yeah, you made it necessary
Yeah, you made
for
it
me.
necessary.
You made it necessary
Right.
for me to cheat because da 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 da
Right.
da.
Yeah, because you didn't give me sex enough. You
Right.
didn't have sex the way I wanted.
Exactly.
And you're controlling me. Financial control. So when that happens, I think one of the things that comes to my mind is look at the criteria for relationship abuse.
Mm-hmm.
How couples within relationship they abuse each other.
Yes.
And then as a result of like financial abuse, physical abuse, codependency and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a result of that, one partner decides to step outside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And then blame it on the partner.
Right.
And say, you did this, you did this, you did this. And, we know that how that goes, right?
Yeah.
And then the other myth is that damage will not be done if the affair is kept secret.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you don't find out,
what he doesn't know won't hurt him.
Yeah.
Or what she doesn't know won't hurt
Yeah.
her. Yeah. And that goes back to what I was saying before about the fact that unless you're a sociopath, you are going to have guilt.
Right.
About that, and that guilt will come out in some way through your behavior, perhaps toward your spouse, perhaps toward yourself, perhaps toward others, perhaps all of the above.
Right.
And so when that comes out and then you're not able to recognize it or you're not able to talk about it because you're busy keeping the secret, then whatever that negative behavior is will add to the problems in the relationship.
Exactly. And, people, ask questions that what to do when the affair is, out.
Yes.
Very much it is known about,
Yes.
And sometimes, couples who love each other, they get, in the problem areas of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And then how to forgive, how to forget, right? And that's a huge concept.
Yeah.
Right.
And I want to add to that forgiveness is people say, well, I can forgive, but I can't forget.
Right.
But forgiveness is it's an act of will, meaning that you have to have the desire, and that's hard to do when you're hurting. So that takes time to even have the desire. But then once you have the desire, you can't just say, oh, now because I want to forgive, I have forgiven. Forgiveness is a process of learning more about why the person did what they did, and having them understand it, and then the both of you feeling like you can start to rebuild the trust, and that takes time.
Exactly. And then according to the article, forgiveness is not about ignoring or accepting or excusing the behavior.
Correct.
Right? But rather move the focus from getting even to spending time and the energy to move forward with exactly what you just said.
Understanding.
And understanding.
Yes.
And then, still, understanding doesn't mean accepting.
Right. Right.
And with infidelity, of course, comes, lots of resentment.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then people again think that, okay, if I, what about my resentment, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about, the hurt that I'm feeling? What about the betrayed feeling? What about all the above? Just whatever else I haven't listed, right? The hurt feelings and everything. So forgiveness is not about, forgetting what happened.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Yeah. Forgiveness is about releasing the pain,
right,
and rebuilding trust,
right,
which is a process, and the process may take months or even years
right,
to accomplish. And so you have to understand that the depth of injury that has occurred will require that much effort and that much time and attention in order to rebuild it.
Exactly. And then some especially women say that they were told when they decided to take their time and understand the process of forgiveness, they were told that they were naive.
Mm-hmm.
They were told that they are codependent.
Yeah.
They were told all the negatives, comments and emotions, because the individual decided to stay in the relationship. So not only to understand the process of what happened, but also give themselves time to learn about themselves and how to make the next move.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So going through rush of divorce and everything, well, of course, that's a choice, and some people have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, in some cases, the separation or the forgiveness or coming back together can happen. Only when the understanding is there, and then after that couple can decide what they want to do with that understanding and what works for them, right?
Exactly.
And that's only done through couples counseling.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And somebody with a therapist who's not biased.
Mm-hmm.
It's because people usually maybe there are some cases that the therapist will look at the person who has done the act of infidelity. They say, well, how am I going to help this person?
Mm-hmm.
Why should I help this person, right?
Yeah, as though the act itself makes the person evil,
Yeah.
rather than it was a hurtful act, but
Right.
that hurtful act by itself does not define the worth of the person.
Exactly, right? So we want to be sure that, when infidelity happens, to allow ourselves time, if it is not an abusive relationship,
Mm-hmm.
to understand what's best for us, give
Yes.
ourselves time, and then make the best decision for ourselves.
Yeah,
Right?
and to find a therapist who is willing to help the person move in the direction that they want to move in.
Exactly.
So if you've decided you want a divorce, you can use a therapist to help you to negotiate that so that the divorce can be as amicable as possible. But if you decide you want to work on the relationship, that the therapist has the skills and the tools to help you do that.
Exactly. So unfortunately, we are at the end of our time. I would like to invite you to please join us tomorrow morning so we can have another episode of Relationship Addictions, Trauma, and Codependency with Dr. Robert Jaffe. And look forward to see you next Thursday at 3 p.m. for another episode of Human Sexuality. Until then,
all you need is love. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is 1490 AM, KMET, Banning, Beaumont, Redlands, and